عندي ما فيش عندي كان خوف
There is no fear.
لأنه لما أجي أفجر حالي
Just before I blow myself up,
كنت طالع عن روحي عند ربي.
I surrender to God.
لما أفجر حالنا
There is no pain.
ما بنتوجع لأن كلنا
I'm blown to pieces.
بتطير شقف. أنا بتطير شقف صغيرة ما بحسش
I turn into pieces and feel no pain.
The suicide bomber is a new and frightening figure of our time. For most of us, the idea of a suicide attack is as incomprehensible as it is repugnant. It is an inhumane crime. In this film, we will see the world through the eyes of the suicide bombers. Israel has experienced over 120 suicide attacks in the last 3 years alone, more than any other country. Inside its prisons are close to 100 suicide bombers, whose bombs failed to explode or who were arrested before they could press the button. Until now, Israeli authorities have been reluctant to grant access to them, worried that giving the bombers a voice would in effect be rewarding them. After months of negotiation, we were finally given access to 5 prisoners, 3 suicide bombers whose missions had failed, and 2 men who built the bombs and recruited the bombers. All 5 had just finished interrogation, and all consented to the interviews. The first one I met was Muhammad Abu Tayoun, a 17-year-old boy who entered Israel with a bag full of explosives, but suffered doubts and returned home. He was arrested several days later. What I want to talk to you about is why you wanted to conduct a martyr operation.
هو بده يعرف يعني كيف أخذت القرار واللي بتسوي العملية.
وما شجعنيش أنا كنت بشجع حالي.
It was my decision.
لأنه الشهادة بروح عند رب شهيد بموت.
Martyrdom leads us to God.
نستشهد بدناش إحنا الحياة.
I want to become a martyr. I don't want this life. I want to be with God, to enjoy the second life. I want to go to paradise where there is happiness and joy, where there are no problems. There I get all I want. I get to be with the 70 virgins. Here our life is full of problems. We Palestinians prefer to die, just kill ourselves, rather than live this worthless life. Our life is worthless. We are hollow bodies leading a pointless life. Israelis enjoy their life. They go out at night, they have cafes and nightclubs. They travel all over the world. They go to America and Britain. We can't even leave Palestine.
האוטובוס מגיע לכאן, הצומת, אל חלקו המערבי של הצומת. הוא עובר את התחנות, את שתי התחנות, ומבקש מראש לקחת את המצלמה קצת ימינה.
We arrived at the suicide bombing just after the wounded had been evacuated. It was the 27th bus bombing since the Second Intifada began.
כתוצאה מן הפיצוץ הזה, האוטובוס מידרדר לאחור ומגיע נתקע במקום שבו הוא נמצא כעת. רוב הנפגעים, ההרוגים והפצועים קשה הם מן הנוסעים שישבו בחלקו הקדמי של האוטובוס, והעובדה הזאת מובילה את החוקרים להערכה שהמחבל ישב או עמד בחלקו הקדמי של האוטובוס, שם הוא פוצץ את עצמו. אני מצליח לראות.
Did he not think about if he would go to his maker, what that bomb would do to the people around him?
فكرت.
I was thinking, there were nails in the bomb. If I get on the bus and blow myself up, the bus will be burnt and the nails will hurt and kill people. As they kill us, we should kill them. They started the Intifada, not us. They started the Intifada when they started shooting and killing people in Al-Aqsa Mosque. They must bear the responsibility.
Forensic teams search in the rubble for clues, while religious Orthodox recovery teams pick up every piece of flesh, even wiping up the blood to ensure its proper burial. Later, the municipal cleanup crews, amongst them many Israeli Arabs and Palestinians, will sweep up the debris and cart the bus off. When you decided to do it, how did they tell you to do the operation? What were you instructed to do?
They said I should get some new clothes, get a haircut, be filmed, then take the bag. It was a gun before, and go to the settlement.
Muhammad's handlers had carefully groomed him for his mission of death.
I already had hatred, and they added to it. They also spoke to me about paradise, where I would get all I want. They encouraged and excited me. They trained me. They showed me the button I had to press to kill myself and kill others. There were nails, and screws, and explosive material in there. I don't know what that stuff is. They call it Ilabid, but I don't know because I'm still young. Not even old people know what it is, just those who make it. Young people like me, we don't know. We just take the bag, belt, or weapon and use it to kill.
Did they tell them before they gave him the bomb what it would be like when the bomb exploded?
They spoke to me about what happens to the body. I've also seen it on TV. The body is turned to little pieces.
Just before his mission, Muhammad made his video declaration of martyrdom. At this point, he becomes a living martyr, someone who is already considered to be dead. You were given a text to read?
They gave me a copy of the Quran. I read a bit and prayed. Then I said a few words. There were bullets and bombs on the table, as well as pictures of other martyrs. I was reading and then someone took a photo of me. I prayed and they took photos of me praying. They also took photos of me holding the bombs and bullets. They wanted to take a photo of me holding a gun, but there was no gun available then.
Can you describe everything that took place? from the night before up until the time you got home?
الساعة
The
بالليل
night before,
صرت أقرأ قرآن
I
وأصلي.
read the Quran and prayed.
طلعت نقرأ قرآن وأصلي. طلع الصبح
Then it was morning.
الساعة 6.
Around 6:30 in the morning, I got dressed, washed my face and had breakfast.
كنت عارف إني راح
I knew I would soon become a martyr,
كنت مبسوط.
and that made me happy.
بعدين رحت.
Then I went down to Nablus.
ركبت
I got into a
بسيارة.
car.
وصلنا خربة جبارة.
When we reached Kirbat Jabara,
كنت تعبان من
I was
الطريق.
tired from the journey.
كانت الساعة تقريبا
It was around
3.
3 o'clock.
حطينا الشنطة شلحت الشنطة.
I put the bag aside and prayed the Asr prayer.
رحت صليت العصر. دخلنا أنا وياه.
Then I smoked with my driver.
الشنطة. تنفجر الشنطة.
We weren't allowed to smoke near the bag because it could explode.
راح ندخنها.
We had to put the bag away.
دخلنا.
We smoked. I prayed with him and then we moved on.
وصلت الطيبة.
When we reached Tabor, he left.
وراح. وأنا بالطيبة
While I was in Taipei,
خطرت على بالي
it crossed my mind that
إنه في ناس ما
some
لهمش
people did not deserve to
دخل
die.
يموتوا من اللي هم اليهود.
Jews who wanted peace.
السلام. أنا مش عارف رايح أقتل.
I was going to kill and did not know whether any of these people might be around.
كنتش عارف.
I didn't know.
صار لخبطت.
I got confused.
صرت أعرف أفكر.
I could not think clearly.
أخذت الشنطة. طبيت الشنطة.
I hid the bag and
صرت ألف.
went for a walk.
من أول مرة بالانتفاضة.
It was my first time outside Nablus since the start of the Intifada.
شلت الشنطة صرت ألف طيبة.
So I walked around Taipei trying to clear my mind.
مش قادر أسيطر على عقلي.
I went into a cafe,
لغالة.
smoked, had a shisha and had some dinner.
برضو
In my heart,
قلبي مدشر
I felt that I didn't want to carry out the operation.
شفيت على الناس ما همش.
I didn't want innocent people and young children to get killed.
أولاد صغار. أنا قلت ربنا هداني برد الحياة.
God led me to continue with my life.
بدي أن لسه أضلني أعيش.
He wanted me to stay alive.
مش كتب لي نموت بدي أنا
It
أعيش.
was not written for me to die yet.
يعني أنا ما أقدرش أعطي الحياة مني
I
حياة.
can't kill myself.
ربنا
It's
هو
God
أدى
who
كل
does
شيء.
everything.
خلاص بدي
And
أنزل
he
عيد.
inspired me to go home.
خلاص علي احكي لي روح روح.
He said, go home,
روحت.
go home.
لو فيش
If I had not
عيلتي
gotten
ما
confused.
شوشتش،
I would have been a martyr now.
كان أنا هسه مستشهد.
Here lie the remains of Bus 37 from Haifa. They rest on the back lot of a bus repair depot, alongside 4 other buses wrecked by bombs. The Haifa bus bombing in March this year was particularly shocking, coming as it did after substantial lull. The explosion killed 17 people, 9 of whom were children, and wounded another 50. Behind every attack is a secret cell of activists, comprising the bomb builder, the recruiter, and those who transport the bomber into Israel. It was a cell of Hamas activists, based in Hebron, who organized the bombing of bus number 37. Soon afterwards, Israeli security forces captured 4 members of that cell. 2 other members were killed resisting arrest. Muaz Abu Shah, a 23-year-old former college student, recruited the bomber.
I recruited the person who conducted the Haifa operation. He prepared himself and carried out the operation. Excellent guy.
The man who built the Haifa bomb and prepared the bomber for his mission was Majdi Emmer, a 24-year-old qualified engineer. like to know why you think it's necessary to kill women and children.
If the Israelis kill a child in Gaza, I'm ready to kill one in Tel Aviv. If they destroy houses in Gaza, I'll do it in Tel Aviv. If they give me security in my land, then there's no problem. I'm a person who looks for peace, who calls for peace, but with one elementary condition: the freedom of my country and people, and to put an end to this Nazi state, this racist Jewish state.
According to our Islamic religion, in case of foreign occupation of any Islamic land, it is the duty of every Muslim to liberate this land, every centimetre of it. Accordingly, we acted, struggled to free all of Palestine, the whole of it, the areas occupied in 1948, as well as the West Bank and Gaza Strip, all of it.
As for Jewish civilians or women, they came to live in my country. That's an assault on me, so I attack them in self-defense. I gave them a chance to stop killing Palestinian children and women and let me live peacefully in my land and fight as soldiers against soldiers, but they refused. So I don't have a choice but to create a balance of terror. The belt is made up of a number of nitroglycerin tubes. On top of these tubes, we put a large quantity of metal pieces to cause the maximum damage. That way we achieve the strongest possible response. The big advantage of a belt over a bag is that it's invisible. One wears it under his usual clothes and it's not seen. It makes it a lot safer to get to the target and achieve the goal. For us, with our Oriental looks, it's very complicated because when one of us gets on a bus, everybody looks at him and checks his bags. So we avoid this by using belts. If he is wearing the belt around his stomach, then he should aim to have the largest number of people in front of him. If he is wearing the belt around his back, then he should aim to have the largest number of people behind him. As for the exact target, the only thing that concerns me is that we achieve a forceful response with a powerful strike. So he must pick a place that contains a large number of Jews and Israelis.
The belt is placed around the belly. It's normally small. The one used in the Haifa operation weighed 10 kilograms. It had 4 kilograms of explosives, and the rest was metal. 4 kilograms is a small amount, so the belt is flat. It's very small, and therefore not noticeable. This allows the bomber to cross the green line easily and blow himself up. He enters the bus, full of peace and tranquility, so that he does not draw any attention to himself. The moment he presses the button is shorter than a second. It is just the press of a button. With the explosion, he leaves this world not feeling anything. He is not aware of the explosion, or the pain, or anything. Instead, he is overcome by a sense of security, that he is now closer to God and paradise.
I was not that concerned about the exact date of the operation. It could have happened a day earlier or a day later. But on that day, I had everything ready. I had completed all the tasks and was awaiting the execution of the operation. I drove Mahmoud to the flat we had rented for the operation and left him there. I gave him all the things he would need for the night, food, drink, and things like that. I stayed with him for a bit and then left. I came back the next morning. He was ready.
As the martyr's soul rises to heaven, he is warmly welcomed by God and the angels. God marries the martyr to 72 virgins. Those virgins are of such stunning beauty that cannot even be described. There are rivers of different kinds. Milk, non-alcoholic wine, and holy water. There are many things in paradise. It is enough to say that the possessions of the most powerful king in this world can only match those of the poorest man in paradise.
Here's a picture of an old lady. She has a hole in her head. Did she come to kill you?
When she voted for Sharon, or any other Israeli leader to represent Israel, she voted for him to kill Arabs, to kill Palestinians. So quite simply, she indirectly aimed to kill me. Why else would I target her? I don't even know who she is.
How do you know she voted for Sharon? Perhaps she voted against Sharon.
Israeli fighter jets make no distinction between young and old, between civilians and military. Why do you not ask them this question? Why do you only ask me this question and remain silent when it's the Jews?
Israel usually responds to a successful suicide mission by destroying the house of the bomber. Arab charities respond by sending the family up to $25,000 in cash.
The martyr knows that his house might be destroyed, his family left homeless. But Allah promised us that every martyr atones for 70 members of his family to enter paradise. So they've lost nothing. They might lose a house or money, but that can all be replaced. It's worth destroying all the houses to achieve freedom for Palestine. It's worth destroying all the buildings, all the institutions, and all the firms to liberate Palestine from the Jews. Even 1 meter of Palestine.
Their houses might be demolished, their brothers arrested, so what? As for myself, 6 of my brothers are in prison. This really motivates me to blow up another 20 buses for my brothers, for my compatriots.
Most Palestinian suicide bombers are teenagers. The suspicion is that the older, stronger, more determined political activists manipulate the younger, weaker, and more impressionable teenagers. The next bomber I met gave me an insight into the type of individuals the recruiters are looking for. Unlike Mohammed, this 18-year-old left me in no doubt he would have pressed the button.
My name is Amir Mohammed Anas Jaradat. I come from just outside Jenin. I have 8 brothers and 2 sisters. I wanted to conduct a martyr operation, but there was no luck for me. I made my decision, but God did not accept it. God did not choose for me to become a martyr. It was not written that I would die. It was written that I would live.
Amir had entered Israel in a car loaded with hundreds of kilos of high explosives, but was spotted by the Israeli police before he could reach his target. They gave chase. Amir escaped and returned home. A few days later, his family, fearful of Israeli retaliation, persuaded him to give himself up.
After the operation failed, I lost my appetite for everything in life. Life seemed empty. I was broken and full of despair. Also, my family pressured me a lot to surrender. I saw them next to me crying. That is why I gave myself up.
Amir readily admits he did just as he was told by those organizing his mission.
They wrote the paper and I read it. It was about the situation in Palestine. It said they kill old people and little children. And as they kill, we will kill. That's what was written in the paper, that they killed children and young people. And I read it.
So they weren't your words in your statement, they were someone else's words.
The paper had already been prepared and I read it. It was their words, not mine. Of course they choose the target. They know about this. I don't know anything. They probably had an area in mind. They told me to drive next to a bus, overtake it, move in close and then press the button. They showed me the button. They said that once I reached the target I should press the button and, God willing, I would join God.
Majdi confirmed to me how carefully they select the bomber.
I check the personality of the person. I check his personality to see whether he's ready and able to conduct his mission successfully. Like any other military organization in the world, you assess them ideologically, psychologically, and militarily. You study that person, his personality, and then you decide if you can work with him on these matters or not.
How many Israeli lives would have made your operation a success, and how many would have justified your dying?
This is in the hands of God. It could be 100, 1, or none. The Quran says, you didn't kill them, it's Allah who killed them. So it's God who kills. I carry out the operation and the rest is up to God. He might kill them all, or kill none of them. He might leave some mutilated. It's God's decision how many die.
So Amir is the perfect weapon, a man without a conscience. He believes that he is acting to free Palestine and that God approves of his methods, so he can absolve himself of any responsibility for the consequences of his actions. The oppressiveness of life in the West Bank makes the recruiter's job very easy. This is the Intifada generation, the kids that grew up during the turbulent and bloody uprising that began in 1987. It lasted 6 years and certainly lives on in the hearts and minds of the children who experienced it. The First Intifada gave way to the Oslo peace process, a period of relative quiet. Those 7 years of frustrating negotiations brought little positive benefit to the lives of the ordinary Palestinian. Oslo collapsed completely when the Second Intifada began in 2000. The frequency of the suicide attacks suddenly increased, and last year, Israel invaded Palestinian-controlled areas of the West Bank. "15 years of violence and dashed hopes have shaped the outlook of every young Palestinian, creating anger and despair in equal measure." The third bomber I met, 16-year-old Bilal Kamal Ali, was a stranger to this dark history. He had been born in Kuwait and grew up in Jordan. His family moved back to an isolated village in the West Bank just before the Second Intifada began. The violence came as a shock to him. Did you see anything with your own eyes during the Intifada?
I saw 2 martyrs in Jenin. They were not killed in front of me. I saw them being carried away. And I saw a smile on their faces. They were smiling after they were martyred. One of them was shot in the back of the head, and the other was shot in the eye. They were martyred.
How did it happen?
They were shot in confrontations with the Israeli army.
And you saw them? You actually saw them?
When I saw them martyred and smiling, I had a very strange feeling that even when martyred, they were still smiling.
What did you feel?
I felt that I had to fight, in spite of myself. You can't see something like this and not be moved.
Did you think about death when you saw him?
I wanted to become a martyr too, to be smiling like them, because they must be going to paradise, God willing.
And before that, did you think about being a martyr?
Before that, I knew nothing about the Intifada. I only became aware very shortly before my operation.
So why did you want to do it so quickly?
I didn't want things to happen that might make me forget the Palestinian blood of all those martyrs. The ones I saw with my own eyes, smiling while they lay dead. And the ones I saw on TV.
You were worried you might change your mind?
Yeah, I was worried I might change my mind.
What happened next, and why didn't you explode the bomb?
I've been reflecting on this for some time. Someone came and asked me if I wanted to carry out an operation, and I agreed. I went down to Nablus. That's where I put on my belt. Then I went down to Yakdir, where I was going to carry out the operation, in an area called Karkur. When I got there, I just walked amongst the people like everything was normal. Then I saw a group of kids playing. Some were playing football and some were riding bikes. To be honest with you, at that point I changed my mind. I no longer wanted to do it. By then, 2 people were suspicious of me. I took off and hid in an orchard. I wanted to die so I wouldn't be caught. I didn't want to be arrested. I knew I'd have to go to prison, so I decided to blow myself up. I tried, but it didn't work.
You actually pressed the button?
I pressed the button, but it didn't work. It was broken. The wire was probably disconnected.
Bilal was arrested the next day. Bilal was unlike the other 2 bombers. He never exhibited the sense of despair that consumed Muhammad or the robot-like mentality of Amir. Confronted with the reality of his mission, Bilal decided not to kill. Or perhaps he was just afraid to die. In his heart, Bilal is not a suicide bomber. He had made a mistake, swept up in the idea of Palestinian defiance of Israel. Bilal is not of this place. He is not obsessed with death, and he can imagine a life beyond the West Bank. And now in prison, do you think it would have been better if the bomb had worked?
Of course not. If I go back home now, I'll start a new life and have nothing to do with what's happening. I might even go back to Jordan. I might not want to stay here. I might ask to be deported during appeal. I don't want to stay here.
The violence of life in the West Bank is real enough, along with the economic desperation created by the current Israeli occupation. But images of violence are also continually repackaged and repeatedly broadcast on Palestinian TV and from neighboring Arab countries, fueling the atmosphere of brutality and hatred, reinforcing the cult of martyrdom. Under the intense pressure of life in the West Bank, it is not possible for a young man to grow up leading a normal life. The everyday problems of being a teenager are magnified and distorted by the situation.
I was in love with a girl, just like anyone else. Once I told her that I wanted to carry out an operation, and she got upset. I didn't want her to be upset. She was an important thing in my life. I wanted to marry her, so I didn't want to upset her, and I decided to postpone the operation, but she was still upset with me. I've been in love with her for 8 years. But then I stopped thinking about her. I thought about carrying out the operation. I'd already planned it anyway. She filled my life. When I spoke to her, it always made me happy. With her, I forgot the Intifada completely. When she left me and I considered the operation again, I realized how bad the situation was. I saw it all on TV. She had made me oblivious to the world around me. A week later, I went on the operation and got arrested.
Article 21, nature of the offence, deliberately causing death. Details of the offence: the accused, on the date and circumstances described, caused the death of Miriam Attar, aged 27 at the time of death. She died as a result of the explosion of the explosive belt. The accused, on the date and circumstances described, caused the death of Smadar Fastata, aged 16 at the time of death. He died as a result of the explosion of the explosive belt. Details of the offence: the accused, on the date and circumstances described, caused the death of Kamar Abu Hamed, aged 12 at the time of death. He died as a result of the explosion of the explosive belt. Marouche, aged 16 at the time of death. He died as a result of the explosion of the explosive belt Mahmoud Kawazme was carrying on his body.
Muaz and Majdi have their day in court. They are facing 17 counts of murder for the Haifa bus bombing and more than a dozen additional charges of being a member of an illegal organization, handling weapons, conspiracy, and assault. If convicted, their sentences could run into hundreds of years.
שלום לכולם, צהריים טובים, בבקשה לשבת. תפדל بالجلوس.
Muaz and Majdi are defiant.
Majdi Mohammed Ahmed Amar.
Majdi Mohammed.
תקום בבקשה.
תפדל وقف.
בסדר, תסביר בבקשה לנאשם שזה שהוא לא קם לא יפריע לניהול המשפט כנגדו.
هذا إذا أنت يعني بتقومش هذا ما بيزعجش وما بيغلفش علينا إنما الإجراء بده يضل مثل ما هو.
ماشي بس هاي محكمة غير قانونية، محكمة احتلال ما بعترف بشرعيتها عشان هيك ما بقوم للقاضي.
The case is adjourned on a technicality.
السلام عليكم.
That Muaz and Majdi are men of determination is beyond question. Their vision is the complete destruction of Israel, and they are willing to use any means necessary to further those aims.
للشعب الإسرائيلي وراح يستمر التفجير وراح يستمر الذبح فيهم لغاية ما يطلعوا من أرضنا.
Date and circumstances described caused the death of Mordecai Hershko, age 41 at the time of death. He died as a result of Tom Hershko, age 15 at the time of death. He died as a result of the explosion of the explosive belt Mahmoud Kawazme was carrying of Tal Kerman, age 17 at the time of death.
Why didn't you do the operation yourself?
That's no problem. When I'm out of prison, I'll carry out such an operation. My stay in prison will not be long. I might be sentenced to life in prison, but the state of Israel will not live long enough to carry out such a sentence. God willing, the state of Israel will perish, and I will leave prison to fight and die in Allah's path.
Let's not talk about what you might do. Let's talk about what you did do. You recruited someone else to carry out this attack. You didn't do it yourself.
That's true. If there is no seed, there cannot be a tree. The seeds must survive so that there will be trees. We are the seeds, and we must grow the trees.
But it is not life that grows some Muad seeds. They are seeds of revenge, sowing only hatred and death. Apart from the political and religious motivations behind the suicide bombers, there are often personal reasons for their actions. And so it was with Majdi, the committed activist.
When I was 12 years old, a border policeman slapped me. I hadn't done anything. I was just walking down the street and he slapped me. 12 years later, when I organized the Haifa bombing, I stood in front of the mirror and I stroked my cheek. I said, "You slapped me once." I'm a Muslim, not a Christian. I know in Christianity, if you slap someone on the right cheek, he turns the left cheek towards you. My principle is different. If you slap me once, I'll slap you twice. If you slap me once, I will slap you twice. If they want to live in peace, they should go back to where they came from. Russians should go back to Russia. Americans should go back to America. This is my country. It belongs to me. His country is the land where he came from.
If Israelis do not leave, what would you do?
Resistance. Resistance till the end.
And the end is what?
The end of life. Either mine or his. Either I will die or he will. There is no other solution.